All right, let me see. Trying to see if I'm live. Can't turn your phone while recording. Okay, well, hopefully that means it's live, and hopefully that means that my video is not upside down. It could be. So I am, okay, I think I'm recording. Let me make sure that this is working. Indeed, I am. All right, fantastic. Okay, this is going to be episode 2 of Rags to Riches Transformation. Anyway, awesome. Glad you guys are here. Got some cool things in plan for you today to be able to share with you. And so I've gone through, I kind of wrote down some notes, documented a little bit about what we can go through today. So this is episode number 2. What I thought I'd cover today is, a little bit of the backstory of kind of how I took and how I kind of wound up in my predicament right here. So as I'd mentioned previously, I used to work at a company called Raytheon. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Raytheon, the largest missile manufacturer in the world. And when I worked there, I worked on some really, really cool programs. I worked on a program called Tomahawk missiles, AIM-9X. It's another missile. It's a Sidewinder. If you ever watch Top Gun and you're watching Tom Cruise and he's like shooting people down out of the air, that's the last missile I was on, and really, really cool. The Tomahawk missile is this super long range missile. You shoot this thing and it goes for like 1,000 miles, and then it can go hit its specific target. Worked on another program called Paveway. Paveway was really, really cool. It's kind of like the government. You ever watch those old movies where they're dropping bombs and trying to take and hit the city? So there's a lot of these bombs like this, these warheads that are left over, and they've got tons and tons of inventory. And so what we did is we made these little GPS units that went on the front and fins on the back. So we took the stupid bomb and we turned it into a real bomb. So you can drop it in, and hit the target. So really cool program. I worked on a few other programs. As we go through this, I'll share with you some of these things. But the big thing that took and changed, I don't know if you guys have ever worked in corporate America. When I was working in corporate America, it was very comfortable. The recession, I didn't even notice that there was a recession. We had these government contracts, and they're very long range contracts. And so a recession could come, but you would still have to fulfill your contract, and those contracts were already previously funded. And so the reality is recessions hit, but I didn't even notice it when I was working at Raytheon. That was one of the big pluses or upsides working in that type of business. Then the thing that we had is, that was down in Arizona. We wanted to live in Utah. My wife and I talked about it. We planned about it. Once my son hits high school, we're going to take and move to Utah. So we had all these great plans to take and move to Utah, and we were jazzed to do it. But the only problem is I don't know if you ever feel this, but I felt like I was pigeonholed into what I was doing, because think about it. I just spent 13 years at this particular job, which means I had a set of skills that were very dedicated towards weapons. And I really, really liked it. The engineering environment's awesome, but my skills were kind of dialed into that specific that specific type of business. And when I took and I did this transition to Utah, well, okay, I hadn't made the transition yet, but I found it very difficult because I applied for jobs in Utah. I applied. I just couldn't get any traction. Nothing was happening. And the jobs that I was finding was actually going to put me with about a 4-hour round trip commute. And so it just was really, really struggling to figure out how to do it. And then my wife, bless her heart, she did the right thing. She gave me an ultimatum. She's like, I'm moving to Utah. Would you like to join me? Sometimes our wives can step in and provide the right fuel to make that work. And so without exactly knowing what I do, having a plan or anything, literally we just put our house up for sale and we were moving to Utah. And it was scary. My house sold. And so next thing you know, I've got to solve a problem. So I had my wife and my kids, they went to Utah. They started staying at my parents' house. And then I was kind of trapped in Arizona. And I did that for about five 5 months, 6 months, um, where I was literally just my whole family's in Utah, all the kids, my wife and stuff, and then I was just in Arizona. Um, didn't it's kind of the way the cookie crumbled. And then finally, since it was becoming very difficult to figure out how to get a job that would take and support us. And like when I'm thinking of jobs, I'm thinking of I've got to create so I've got 10 kids. I've got 8 kids and my wife, so that's 10 of us I've got to be able to support. So I can't what I've noticed as I've accumulated more kids, like opportunities and jobs that I could have said yes to when I only had 1 kid or 2 kids, that was different. But now to be able to support a family this large, I have to say no to a ton of opportunities, and I can only say yes to a few of them. And and that's kind of where I was at. And so I was straddled over this barrel, I guess you could say. And I'm like, eventually I just ended up quitting and literally just moving to Utah. I bought a house for my family so that they had a house they could live in, and then finally I just picked up and I moved home, and it was very that was a very harrowing experience. Um, Being able to just walking away from a career. I mean, I had retirement set up there. I had pension. Um, God, I had a lot of vacation. I don't know, I probably had 4, 5 weeks of vacation, something like that, maybe 5, maybe coming up on 6, I don't know, it was a lot, and then just to literally pick up, move, and I just walked away from everything that I had to come up here to Utah, and so now I'm here, and I'm trying to figure out how do you provide for my family, and, at night, I want my wife to think everything's cool and everything's fine, but like she would go to bed and I would just sit on the ground and I would just rock back and forth and you're just pouring your heart out. It's like, God, please help me. I've got to figure out how to do this. And it was difficult. It was challenging. Like in my entire life, never has the thought of not being as a good idea, but the pressure, the mental game, the stress, the anxiety, it became very, very powerful and overwhelming. And so I struggled, and like one of the thoughts that would come to my mind is my family better off with me or without me? And I'm like, they're by far better off with me. So like I've got to take this negative thoughts and this negative pressure and I've got to start pulling it out because it's it was the harrowing experience of being able to go out and try to find a job that would work. So I couldn't most things I just couldn't apply for. Basically, I had to figure out how to go create my own opportunity. And so to be able to get this figured out, I just started trying to do some types of consulting jobs. One of my first jobs I got was very interesting. It was working with a landscape company, great landscape company. I felt like when I went in there, they had so many problems that what they wanted me to do is to be a shrink. And so I would just listen. I would listen. I would listen. It was just like constant barrage of complaining and complaining and complaining and complaining. And it just God, I mean, I knew what was going to happen the next day. I would go in and I would just listen to this barrage of complaining, and it was kind of getting me a little bit annoyed, And I mean, think about it when your kids come up to you or whatnot, if you have kids, and they come up and they just start complaining about this child and complaining about that child and complaining about those children and stuff, and eventually you just kind of like, man, I'm just gonna fix this. So you like want to step into it and just like fix, 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 fix. And I ended up doing that. Um, got a little impatient. I'm like, so I got up there and I started writing on the whiteboard. All right, we're gonna do this and this and this and this, and I started doing it all. And that's kind of when I discovered that people don't they want to think that they discovered the solution to solve their problem, and they really don't want me to show them how or to point out the super obvious and solve the problem. Anyway, didn't work out well. That opportunity ended up just vanishing out from under me. I ended up finding another opportunity where I could do like sales. The thing is, I started peeling back the onion, trying to figure out what opportunity would work, and I just kind of like sales. Like I just kind of discovered it was sales. So I found another company. It was a tech company, and I started driving sales for them. And that was very exciting, Um, like I would, but I didn't have a lot of sales experience. And so basically I just use like brute force, start picking up the phone book, start calling this company, calling this company, and calling this company. And then I started getting on LinkedIn and I connected with like 10,000 people and I started trying to find all the all the decision makers inside these companies so I could identify like who can I call or who can I send a message to so that I could get in front of the right audience so I can start making this opportunity work. And so I did. I started hammering at that and next thing you know, I'm starting to find the big fish in the pond. And I'm starting to get audiences with them and we're talking. And then the thing that I kind of ran into is when I found the audience with them and they were interested, then they would try the product, but the product couldn't fulfill on what it was supposed to do. If you ever read the innovator's dilemma, he always talks about like there's a product, like a milkshake is what he refers to. He says that somebody buys a milkshake, but he says what they're really doing is hiring a milkshake to solve a very specific problem. And that problem is they want to, in this case, he suggested they're trying to go from like their house to work, but they want a little food in them. So when they get to the office, they're not super hungry. So then they would stop and get a milkshake. And he said that they hired the milkshake because if they were to hire a donut, then they would get the sticky things on their finger. And they're like, well, people aren't going to want sticky fingers by the time they get to the office. And so by the time we get to the office, they're like, I got all this mess on me, right? And and so the donut wasn't who got hired for that job. But if they made the milkshake too runny, then the person would drink up the milkshake too much. By the time they get to the office, then then like they wanted something to distract them a little bit during the transition. And so these products were hired for a specific job. So they had to make the milkshake a certain thickness so that when the person got it, the milkshake was not gone by the time it got to the office, so then it fulfilled or scratched that itch. And they didn't have sticky fingers and a whole host of things. And what I discovered is with my clients, they were like it needs to do this and it needs to do this and it needs to do this, but we wouldn't listen to them, right? In our development, our technology development, we wouldn't listen to the client. We were just like, oh, we just kind of think, oh, that's your fault, right? And as we think, or as we had that behavior, in the end, the clients didn't want the product, and so then that opportunity collapsed, and that opportunity collapsed, and the company eventually just folded. And so, I found another opportunity where I was working with a solar company, trying to recruit people to come work for them. And what I ended up discovering is me and every other recruiter out there, we were all trying to recruit these people into our company, but like there was not really a distinguishing value that we would bring to the marketplace over somebody else because we were all just saying, hey, come work for us. We can do your installations, come sell for us. And it's kind of what I became aware is that if you don't have anything special, it becomes very difficult to differentiate yourself. It's kind of like when you get on Amazon and, like, all right, who's going to give me the cheapest product? Like, I want to buy a marker. Okay, cheap, 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 cheap. Good score. Okay, boom, take and pull it, right? That's what the sales reps or guys were doing to us is they come in and they're like, all right, what you going to pay out, pay out, pay out, pay out, pay out, pay out, pay out. And then they're like, okay, cool, I'll take that one. And so that's what they were going to, unless you had something that was like a software advantage, some technology advantage or something. And we didn't have that. And so anyway, that I kind of fizzled on that. But what I ended up doing is I ended up going door to door selling solar. And what I did is I went back to the original tech company and I started using their software to be able to help me do the door to door sell stuff. And when I used the product I was trying to peddle, I was very familiar with it. I trained people on this stuff and I used it and I'm like, this product sucks. And so then I'd give them my feedback, say, hey, we need to do this and this and this because the product won't be usable. Um, anyway, they didn't do anything about it. I gave them the feedback. And in the end, even though I sold the stuff and I really liked it, I got abandoned it. I went to Google and I started using Google software and technologies and stuff to solve that particular problem. And so it was all this stuff, all this stuff kind of going on and tweaking and stuff and trying to figure out how to provide for my family. And door to door was just, it was a little bit grinding. And while I was out selling door to door, I ran into one of my friends, and he had a flooring company, and he said, "Hey, come do sales for my flooring company." And that one I really liked because I would go out there and I would hustle all these opportunities, and then we would start fulfilling on the back end. And the thing is I doubled the size of his company. And but my sales were limited because trying to find bandwidth for people to come in to be able to come in and take those sales and then start doing the installs. We couldn't find enough talented guys to do it. And so that piece of it got very frustrating. But it's okay. I was making really good money. The problem I ran into is like not everybody's on the same playing field. Okay. They think that just because I have tons of cells, that means that quality doesn't matter and I could just keep backfilling it. And so the quality started dropping, and I probably had like 16 clients. And the next thing you know, this client doesn't want to work with us anymore. And then this one didn't want to work with us anymore. And so it started collapsing. And so I started going and trying to work with the guys individually. I'm like, okay, fix this, fix this, fix this. Let's do this. The main thing is I'm like, look, you get 550 feet of floor to install 500 feet of floor. That means you got 10% scrap. So we got to live within that. But they're like, oh, cool. So they create 600 feet. They needed 600 feet because they needed another 10% scrap. Well, I mean, how many customers are dying to pay 10% more because we can't control our scrap rate? And the guys want to go fast, so they're just getting the chop saws and chopping it all up and throwing it down. But then trying to save time instead of like putting the floor down and nailing it, we're not even nailing it now. And I'm discovering this, and then all of a sudden, just client after client started kind of having problems. And so that's when I'm like, I've got to find a solution where I can listen to my client and I can figure out what they want, and then I can fulfill on it. Um, I've got to be able to fulfill on a massive scale. The only way I know to take and to change my income is you've got to be able to fulfill rapidly. And I'm like, okay, so I've got that problem right there. And then I need to find an arrangement that just basically to allow me to prosper and not operate. That's when I was trying to find this opportunity, knowing my flooring business was in trouble. I started searching for solutions, and I found Jeff Walker's product launch formula. Now, you guys familiar with Jeff Walker? Very interesting guy. What he does is he would take like a traditional sales letter, and instead of taking that sales letter and just giving it all to you at once, that's kind of how direct response marketing would take place. He would take that letter, he'd chop it up into 4 pieces. He would turn it into a video and shoot it. And here's video number one. And he would show you something really cool. And you'd be excited. And then you're like, all right, cool. And then he would come back like 2 days later and he'd send you another video. And you'd be like, wow, this is exciting. And then he'd come back and send you another video. And then on the fourth video was an opportunity for him to say, hey, like, if you really thought this was valuable and you learned a lot, like I could take you much farther if you wanted to spend some time with me learning. And so I saw that and I'm like, wow, that's the solution. I could start doing this online internet stuff. I could do marketing. I could figure this out. I already know how to generate sales, but I've got to figure out how to do this. So I started digging into that, and a friend of mine said, hey, or actually not, I got ahead of myself. Have you ever seen Ty Lopez? And he's got this Here in My Garage video. Okay. So I was with my kids. We were driving to the gym and we listened to motivational videos, and Ty Lopez's ad pops up. And we're like, we'll just listen to this one. And he starts talking, and my kids, we all get kind of involved in it, right? And we're digging this thing. And so I'm listening to him. So we started listening to a whole bunch more of him as we would drive to the gym and when I'd take my kids to the school. And so we would do this. It was kind of the morning ritual of listen to Ty Lopez now. Let's listen to him, figure out what he's got. And I found it very interesting because he was talking about online sales, internet marketing, and creating businesses that way. I'm like, okay, I think we got a winner here. And so I started digging into it, trying to figure out what the solution was or how I could go about doing this. And Ty Lopez ended up saying, hey, he says, like, you should go to Berkshire Hathaway and meet Warren Buffett. Well, maybe not meet Warren Buffett, but you need to go to this thing because these guys are the titans. These guys with the skills, the talent, they have been phenomenal at creating value. And so we went to that. We actually met Ty Lopez. It was really cool, right in front of Warren Buffett's house. If you look at my like some pictures, I think I show a picture of Ty Lopez and us. Anyway, we shot a little video with him. It was really cool. And so we we came back to Utah. I'm like, okay, so I spent $1,000, maybe just over a grand, buying Ty Lopez's course and started studying it. And then somebody introduced me to Russell Brunson. And I'm like, okay, more marketing stuff. I love it. So I bought his .comSecrets book and I started reading this and I'm like, well, there it is. It's all laid out. I'm like, this is interesting. I could do this. And so then I bought Expert Secrets, his other book, and I started reading into it. I'm like, okay, here it is. It's all laid out for me. So I started creating a business using a product called WordPress. And and as I was doing that, I'm like, wow, this is complicated. This is really, really difficult. And so then I started digging into his ClickFunnels software, which is what he really sells. And I'm like, that's the answer. So I started digging into this and I started creating a business with my mom where I was going to do preschool. And I started working on it. And what I discovered is as much as and as hard as I wanted that to work, I had some challenges to make it work. It was like, I guess we all have skill sets, right? My mom's skill set wasn't, she's an excellent preschool teacher. So there's like this massively untapped value of what my mom could do. But trying to get her to take the copy and the script and then to put it in a format where people could read it or consume it in a video format, I think my mom was just mortified of a camera. And and we couldn't make it work. Like it didn't matter how hard I tried. And so I'm like, okay, so that's not going to work. So I'm going to start working on this vegan boss lady with my wife. Now my wife is like really really good at raw vegan type stuff, like super healthy eating. It took her a long time and lots of trial and error to be able to figure out how to eat very healthy to remain energized and have an energy to get to the end of the day, but then to heal her body, not to be sick and stuff. And eating this raw foods became like really, really interesting. And I started doing it. I'm like, wow, Jocelyn, you're right. This stuff is phenomenal. And so I really liked it. I'm like, you know what? Let's create a business around that. So we started working on it. And about this time is when kind of what I'd mentioned to you, like all of a sudden it seems like the world just got really complicated. And all of a sudden, like there was a big fire right by my house. It was massive. Like if you look at the pictures on my Facebook page under Rags to Riches, well, it's Rags to Riches transition on Facebook. You'll see these pictures, and this fire was just blazing crazy. It was like blazing crazy. And as far as we could tell, everything was going to be completely annihilated. Um, so it, it it was a harrowing experience because we were really excited. At this time we just had a baby. We were at the hospital, having our eighth child. It was very difficult. Um, and then we're excited to go home to the comfort of our home where we're familiar with, and to be there. And all of a sudden, this fire is like raging at our back door. So almost like probably like 1-2 days after we got home. Wow, this one camera's got a lot of too much light. Um, I guess I'll just be super white today. Anyway, so the fire is just insane. Everything is being threatened. So my wife, we come home. This is what happens: is blazing fire. The entire city is completely evacuated, and we're like, where do you take 10 people? Like, people don't typically have space for 10 people to show up. And that's when my parents let us go to their house, and we slept on couches, we slept on chairs, we slept in all kinds of interesting places. And we stayed there for a while until the fire had finally finally subsided. Um, but during this time, um, my business actually did completely collapse. All the clients, because our quality was so bad, the entire business just went. No clients left. They because we'd done such a bad job, they sent us massive bills to uh, for the cost of repairing all the floors that we had done wrong. And so all of a sudden, everything just dissolved out from under me. So out of staying at my parents' house is under fire, newborn baby, wife just went into massive case of postpartum depression, and like it got really difficult. So now I don't have any money, but I just what do you do? It was what do you do? You got a knot in your gut. You know that your ability to provide just evaporated. Starting to feel a little bit inadequate as a husband who's supposed to take care of my wife and provide and make life good for her, and like nothing, I screwed it up. Um, it just all it everything went wrong, and so then we ended up getting some rain. Um, they made our fire the number one fire in the entire United States, trying to figure out how to save all those homes. Um, they were able to extinguish the fire. The rains came, and but then the problem is because there's all these scars. They're like, we have tremendous rain coming, and like we've got to go barricade this thing. And so now I've got the entire city. We're down there and we're just sandbagging. And then we've got the National Guard coming in. We're barricading this, sandbagging that. And we're trying to secure our homes. And like, anyway, so now we're under the threat of avalanches and we're under the threat of flooding. And so my wife, who was in a fragile state, she is like, I just wanted to spend time with my baby. Like I wanted to just spend time with my baby. I don't want to be kicked out of my house. I want to be in my house. I don't want to have the threat of fire. And when we left our home under the evacuation, the fire was at our door. And it's like, I don't know if you're religious at all, but like there's been some miracles that took place because it makes no sense whatsoever that our home's still here. But it is. There's things that had transpired that you can't explain it any other way. And and all of a sudden our home's still here. So we're trying to barricade it. I ended up trying to protect it, ended up putting some utility stuff and certainly like they used to. And that's kind of where I wound up in this conundrum. Um, I what I started doing is I just kind of discovered that like I've got this new plan. Like I had to basically right here, right now, this is where you're seeing it. This is why this is the rag, not rags to riches, because I'm not documenting something that already took place. I'm taking it from like if you had 30 days and the whole world came to like everything came to an end, you had 30 days to figure it out, which is about where I'm at. Um, Everything came to an end. And now I've got to figure out how do I provide for a family and how do I save my house? How do I solve all these problems? And so this is where I'm at. I started working really diligently with my wife, and we created a sales funnel. You'll see that's what Russell Brunson will take and teach a lot about. And as I go through this over this next 30 days, well, 30 we're it hasn't started yet. It's not going to start till like next Monday or maybe the following Monday. Take a look on my website. You can go to ragstorichestransition.com here in case you can't. It's ragstorichestransition.com, and that's where I'll take and I will um, basically I'll share with you this journey and coaching I've gone through. Before my business collapsed, I started buying products after products to learn how to do this online marketing. Probably collectively spent $5,000 on just training videos and products and stuff. And so I've taken all that stuff and I have laid out a 30-day plan to be able to figure out how to take and to remonetize my business. And that's the transition that I'm talking about. Hence rags versus transition instead of just rags to riches, because the riches haven't come yet. The rags are there, they're at my door. I'm like, how do I take and solve this problem? And I've got the big thing that I feel like is playing out in the head is it's a mental game. I feel like I've got to get to a point, like you got to believe that you can solve this problem. Like I look at Warren Buffett, and I think if I was to take Warren Buffett and I was to reincarnate him in my body, okay, we strip everything away from the guy would create his wealth faster because he discovered how to do it. He knows how to do it. He knows the pitfalls. He walks through the minefield every day, and he knows not to step on this one. He knows to step here and here and here and here and here, and he knows how to navigate through this experience. And that's incredibly valuable. And so that right there is exactly, I have taken and I have studied this material and this content, and I have gone through and I am mapping out a 30-day strategy where take and do this. It's a blueprint, right? To take and to go from rags to riches transformation. There's obviously no guarantees, but at the same time, it's a lot like what Tony Robbins said, that if you want to take the island, burn the boats. And like right now, my boats are already burning. And I can spend time chasing opportunities to bring money in, but I've got to also consider, will those opportunities bring in enough money? And if they won't, I can't spend any time whatsoever looking at it. I've got to spend time looking at what has exponential potential. I can't create a business. I can't create another business, build these things up, and then watch them just dissolve out from under me because people are disinterested in delivering quality. And so I can't do that. And so I've got to find, and whatever the business is, it's got to be scalable and it's got to be able to create a tremendous amount of wealth. And there's lots of opportunities out there, but the opportunity that resonates the most with me is figure out how to do online sales and marketing. I'm like, and if you get this right, like one big domino, like there's all these dominoes, right? And you could go over and knock that one over and that one over, but it would only knock some over. But if I find that domino, like the head domino, I go pop, pop, and everything else is just gonna go. That's the idea. Is I could don't I've got to be very, very, very careful. I can tell right now, I have to be very careful about how I spend the next 30 days. I've got to be very careful what problems I solve. I've got to be like what they're put it into perspective a little bit, because this was interesting. Warren Buffett and Bill Gates, they were both asked, what's the biggest thing that you can attribute your success to? And both of them, they weren't by each other at the time, but both of them said focus. Like focus was the number one thing. And you would think traditionally that like hard work is the solution, right? But how many people can you think of who work hard but have no money, right? So if hard work was the solution, then school teachers should probably be rich, and construction workers should probably be rich, and all these different people and all these different trades that are very taxing, they should be rich. But that's not it. It's not it. Like you can't say that hard work isn't important, but Warren Buffett and Bill Gates both said focus, which is they ended up discovering the one big domino. Like you can't take little problems. Like a little problem I had today is like my internet's so bad and it looks like we're about ready to get fiber up here, and so like I got these little problems I can spend a lot of time trying to solve, but solving a little problem isn't going to solve this big problem. I've got to figure out what's the big domino, nail it. Once I nail the big domino, the rest of the problems follow. So anyway, that's kind of my backstory. You can kind of see where I'm at. This is going to be a very interesting next 30 days to be able to see how how things start shaping up. I've got some money in the bank. Right now, my plan is I cannot afford to go out and chase stupid opportunities. I've got to focus on the one thing. And the one thing is I grow my internet-based business. And I am like, that's it. I'm getting hammered. So I'm going to give away some really, really, really valuable stuff. Basically, if you want $5,000 or more worth of coaching and training, I am sharing with you literally something that I paid thousands and thousands of dollars for. And I've spent a tremendous amount of time doing it. And I've put it in a blueprint so that this knowledge is transferable. The stuff, what I'm going to share with you isn't hypothetical or some crazy ideas. It's like literally legitly proven blueprint stuff. Like Tony Robbins says, you want to be successful, model success. What I will be sharing with you is not my blueprint. It's the blueprint that I am following, and it is the blueprint that I have mined out of all of this training so that it can be available. Anyway, you can go to right there, rags to riches transition.com. So www.rags, R-A-G-S, to riches, R-I-C-H-E-S, transition, T-R-A-N-S-I, T-I-O-N.com, rags, riches, transition.com. It is a long name, sorry. I could call it RTRT, which sounded like to me like rock tit. And so since I didn't want that one, it's ragsrichestransmission.com. I might actually use that, but you got to know you need to know what it means. Okay. All right. You got it. Now you know what's going on. So I will